All right, so we're 17 days into this conflict with Iran, but what's happening on the ground or, well, on the water, it isn't your typical war. We're not seeing massive front lines or armies on the move. What we are seeing is this kind of controlled, simmering intensity. So what is actually going on here?
It's a great question, right? How can you have a war that's basically in a holding pattern? I mean, there are real military operations, there are strikes and naval patrols, yet that all-out escalation everyone's been worried about just hasn't happened. It's almost like the entire conflict is being held in a state of suspended animation on purpose.
Well, there's actually a term for this that analysts are using, a sustained pressure phase. And this idea, it's really the key to understanding everything else. Both sides are definitely applying force, but they're also being incredibly careful, trying not to be the one that tips the whole region into absolute chaos.
So let's zoom in on where this pressure is really being felt the most. The main arena, the center stage for this whole thing is out at sea. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. This one narrow waterway has become the absolute center of gravity for this conflict.
And this number right here is why. 20%. Think about that. 1/5 of all the oil that moves by sea on the entire planet has to squeeze through this one tiny choke point. That single statistic explains why the rest of the world is watching this situation so closely.
So what does this look like on the water? Well, on one side, you have coalition forces. They're doing active patrols, but they're taking a non-confrontational stance, all while getting ready to coordinate tanker escorts if they have to. And on the other side, Iran is doing what it does best, using its fast attack boats, keeping eyes in the sky with drones, and just generally monitoring everything that moves. It's this incredibly tense, strategic dance where one wrong move could be absolutely catastrophic.
But, this whole thing isn't just happening at sea. There's another fight going on, a war in the shadows. We really need to look at the other fronts, what's happening in the air, and through the various proxy forces around the region.
And this is where you see two totally different philosophies clashing. The US and Israeli coalition is all about precise, targeted airstrikes. It's a lower operational tempo designed to carefully degrade very specific capabilities. Iran's response? It's their classic playbook, asymmetric pressure. They're using drone launches and activating their network of proxy groups to push back from all different directions.
So what's the coalition actually hitting? Well, this isn't some broad bombing campaign. The targets are incredibly specific. We're talking about missile launch systems, facilities tied to drones, logistics hubs for the IRGC, and other military infrastructure. The goal here isn't to level cities, it's to surgically take apart Iran's ability to project its power.
Okay, to really get what's going on, you have to look at this like a high-stakes chess match. You've got to understand what each of the main players wants to achieve, because each side has a very clear objective, even if they completely conflict with each other.
For the United States, it's pretty much a two-part mission. Job 1, protect the freedom of navigation in the seas, keeping all that critical oil flowing. Job 2, keep the military pressure on to contain and limit Iran's capabilities. It's a strategy of control, really.
Israel's goal is even more laser-focused, you could say. Their stated position is all about one thing: systematically taking apart Iran's offensive tech, their missiles and their drones, which, from their perspective, is a direct existential threat.
And what about Iran? Well, their position is basically a very clear red line. They are signaling loudly that they're willing to escalate big time if their economic infrastructure gets hit any further. For them, the threat of causing much wider economic pain, especially to Gulf energy facilities, is their biggest deterrent.
So, with all that on the table, where does this all go from here? I mean, a sustained pressure phase can't last forever. Something's got to give. So, what are the key things we should be watching for over the next 48 hours that could tell us a major shift is coming?
There are really three key tripwires to keep an eye on. First, if we see the formal start of multinational operations to escort tankers, that completely changes the game at sea. And that could easily trigger the second tripwire, an Iranian attack on energy infrastructure in the Gulf. And finally, the third indicator to watch for is a sudden increase, a real ramp-up, in the pace of coalition airstrikes. Any one of these could just shatter the fragile holding pattern we're in right now.
Which of course leaves us with the ultimate question. What we're watching is this incredibly dangerous, high-stakes test of wills. It's a game of chicken, where both sides are trying to balance applying pressure with just enough restraint. The whole thing is hanging in this really delicate balance. So in this strategic standoff, you have to wonder, who's going to blink first?